talk about out. We talk about out of many, one people. We talk about out of many, one people. Yes. We talk about out of many, one people. But when we talk about out of many, one people, there is still, when you look at the cultural expression, so the identity, the values, what people identify as, because we talk about what is culture, the norms and values. We talk about, yeah, the culture is the way of life for people. Culture is the way of life of a people. When you study culture, you're studying, when you study society, you also have to study the culture, you study the way of life of the people. That also involves history. Okay, but sometimes the history is corrupted to suit a particular narrative that continue to preserve a status quo over the other. If you read Michel Foucault and his postmodernism, yes, I subscribe to that. So this out of many oneness, culture is the way of life of a people. And for the Caribbean, we always promote this out of many one people, this Afropolitanistic way of life. Okay, a life, okay, we talk about this hybrid culture, but yet the values and what we say is what, when we study culture, we study what? We look at norms and we look at values. Okay, we also talk about what is taboo. What is taboo is the African heritage. But what is embraced, what is normalized, and what is seen as valuable is the European influences. So then this out of many one people is just a talking point. But when you delve into all things, there's no out of many one people. It's out of many one people who have been colonized to think one way and to embrace one thing and find it difficult to think any other way and to embrace any other thing. But anyways, but this final paper is a paper that you guys are going to want to hear on African civilization. By revisiting African civilization, we may preserve and reclaim African spirituality. Towards the end of the class, we'll talk about that after we have a presentation on Barbados and Jamaica. Are you guys ready to present?
Yes, sir, we are.
There we go. All right. We have a presentation today. Go ahead. Group 6 will present on Barbados and Jamaica. There's so much happening in the Caribbean. I heard that the U.S. had levied a reciprocal tariff on Jamaica. And I think Barbados, they had leveled a 10% tariff on. I don't know if your presentation will reference that today. Okay, but go ahead. You can take over the screen. And by the way, guys, this is Caribbean Thought, the final lecture in semester 2, 2025.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Good evening, colleagues. Good evening, Reverend Renaldo McKenzie. I am Julian Barrett, and we are Group 6. The group members are Leroy Johnson, Renee Richards, and myself. And we are here to present on Barbados and Jamaica. We will begin our presentation. Jamaica and Barbados. Introduction. Imagine two islands, each bursting with vibrant culture, deep history, and undeniable global influence. Jamaica and Barbados. Though small in size, these Caribbean powerhouses have shaped the world in music, politics, and economics. In this presentation, we will dive into their socio-political economy, religions, demographics, and history, uncovering what makes them unique yet connected. We'll also explore their current position on the global stage and highlight influential figures originating in these islands who have left an unforgettable mark on the world stage. So we're going to look at Jamaica first. And next, the above slide, Renee. No, not that one. Go down. Yes. All right, so we're going to look at Jamaica first, individually. Referred to as the heartbeat of the Caribbean, Jamaica, the third largest island in the Caribbean, spans 10,991 91 square kilometers, 4,242 square miles. Home of approximately 3 million people, it boasts a diverse population primarily of African descent, with influences from India, China, European, and Middle Eastern heritage. Famous for its vibrant culture, Jamaica is the birthplace of reggae music, Rastafarianism, and world-renowned athletes. The island's rich tradition blends African, British, and indigenous Taínos influences, reflected in the music, cuisine, culture, and festivals. With a tropical climate, breathtaking beaches, and lush mountains, Jamaica is a land of natural beauty and culture dynamism that captivates the entire world. So we continue with Jamaica. The island is divided into 14 parishes, 2 of which are amalgamated as the Kingston and St. Andrew Corporation, generally corresponding to the Kingston metropolitan area. Parish councils whose members are directly elected, administrator, and other parishes. The capitals of some parishes have elected mayors. Jamaica is also traditionally divided into 3 counties: Cornwall, Middlesex, and Surrey. Next slide. And this is a map of the island, as you will see the 14 parishes listed. Next slide. And so we're going to look at the socio-political economy now. The history of Jamaica and the histories of Jamaica and Barbados are deeply intertwined with colonialism, slavery, and economic exploitation, which have shaped their current socio-political and religious landscapes. While both nations have achieved independence and economic development, they continue to struggle with the long-lasting effects of colonial rule, structural inequality, and there is tension between Western religions, religious traditions, and African spiritual heritage. Understanding the socio-political economy and religious dynamics of these 2 Caribbean nations requires an exploration of both the visible structures of power and the hidden forces continue to shape their society. Next, thank you, Renee. Jamaica is a parliamentary democracy and a constitutional monarchy with a mixed economy. This is from the Government of Jamaica 2020. The country has a GDP of 15.7 billion, World Bank 2020, and the poverty rate of 17.8%, and that's from the Jamaica Observer 2020. Jamaica's economy is a mixture of tourism, agriculture, remittances, and mining, but its foundation is deeply unstable due to historical and contemporary structural inequalities. The legacy of slavery and colonial rule resulted in a plantation-based economy that even after independence in 1962 continues to benefit a small elite while leaving the majority of Jamaicans in economic hardship. And I'm sure many of us can relate to this slide. Am I right, classmates? Yes, so we'll look at the religious aspect of Jamaica now. Next slide, Renee, please. So religion. Jamaica is a predominantly Christian country with 77.2% of the population identifying as Christians. Statistical Institute of Jamaica 2019. Other significant religions include Rastafarianism, Hinduism, and Islam. Jamaica is a deeply religious nation with Christianity being the dominant faith. Protestantism, brought by the European missionaries during colonial rule, as a significant presence, with denominations such as Seventh-day Adventist, Pentecostalism, Baptist traditions holding sway over large portions of the population. Many churches exert influence not only in spiritual matters, but also in politics, education, and social policies. However, beneath the surface of mainstream Christianity, there exists a complex spiritual landscape that includes African derived religious practices such as revivalism, a blend of Christianity and African spirituality, has been an integral part of Jamaican religious life, especially in rural communities. This movement incorporates spirits, possessions, drumming, and healing rituals that closely resemble African religious traditions brought into the island during slavery. So we continue with religions. Even more controversial is the practice of obia, and that's something that we've been discussing a lot in class lately. And this is a form of African spiritualism associated with magic, healing, and curses. Obia was criminalized by colonial authorities who feared its power as a form of resistance among enslaved Africans. And when I read this part, I saw what Sir has been saying in the class about, the stigma that is attached to obia. I am one person who doesn't even like the word because of how obia was introduced to me, because of how I see it. But maybe we can look at it. I mean, the practice itself. I don't know if there's a pure side to it, but we can look at it some more and see what and why it was banned by this white supremacy. Although
Yeah.
still technically illegal, it remains widely practiced. Yes, sir?
Quite interesting. I'm listening to the presentation, and and um and I want to make a point to all of you students, to all
Yes,
of the
sir.
class, and it's unfortunate that all the students aren't here today. I want to make a very important point. When we began the class, and if you look at the syllabus, students have to take their learning very seriously. It's not the teacher who has to facilitate interest. It is the students. Um, I was asked to mark some supplemental exams for JTS, and sometimes, to be honest, sometimes I don't like marking supplemental exams because maybe I think I'm too hard or harsh. But the answers, one of the exam, as the exam question asked, what does it mean? What is Caribbean diaspora? The answer was countries that are closely joined together. That is not diaspora.
No, no, sir. No.
That is what the student put in the exam paper. And I I've been getting, I was very sad.
Mm-hmm.
I've been getting a lot. One student was saying they wanted to graduate and mark this paper, and I said I shouldn't be the person to mark the paper if they are hoping that this student graduate in June or November. I shouldn't be the person to mark the paper. But I want students to really think. Now, we did the Afrocentric paradigm. We talked about the Afrocentric paradigm. I'm listening to the presentation, and you said in your presentation, even more controversial is the practice of obia, a form of African spiritualism associated with magic,
Magic.
healing, and curses. Now, I said to myself, hold up, stop right there. Stop right there. I don't know. I mean, is that where did you get the information? Who is saying that it is a.
Statistical Institute of Jamaica, sir.
Oh, okay. Is it you? Oh, you got it from the Statistical Institute of Jamaica. Oh, I just see that at the bottom. And I said to myself, students, hold on. And you guys, and I want you guys to be serious thinkers.
Yes, sir.
And you just said, Julian, you see what I'm saying? In the
Yes, sir, I do.
in the official documents of Jamaica from a recognized institution of Jamaica, they are defining and describing Obia as a curse, as being associated with curse. When people define evil, when you ask what is this, what are the words that, what is descriptive of evil? Curse, sometimes magic or dark magic. I'm so happy that they didn't put dark magic, but the idea of curse, you know, the fact that the government of this country and our institutions are using that Obia, I mean, and I'm sorry that I pause you. I'm very just this upset about this. That we are, and I'm so happy that Julian, you are beyond, you're different. You are here, you are being very thoughtful about it, and you're saying, oh, no, I understand what you're saying, sir. But yes, our institutions are conditioning our people to think in those ways as well. When you read books and you see this, you see what I'm saying?
I see what you're saying, sir. I see what you're saying.
Anyway, sorry for cutting you, but I'm
It's
very
okay.
disappointed. But I want you to draw attention to these things, and in your reflections and in your writing. Also, if I ask you to define, how do you define Obia in your exam paper? Please also put thought into it. Oh yes, this is. I know people please don't put that it is a curse in your paper, because when I'm marking, I'm not going to be happy. Okay.
I realize I'm glad I brought it up now, sir. So
Yes.
and
Yes.
it gives us a chance to look at it realistically as well, because as I said, it is how it was presented to us. But then again, if we celebrate these people who use these things to purchase our freedom, then we have to reason this thing out. We celebrate Nanny of the Maroons and we laud her as a national hero, the one female, the one heroine, and then this is what she used, this is what a lot of the persons used. And it could be that it was presented to us that way because the white man fears the power that these people had, and the aim of the white man was to disarm the black man of his power, you know.
Right. So
So
I'm so happy that I'm happy you put that in. You put a Statistical Institute of Jamaica in bracket so that you can let us know that, hey, this is not coming from me. This is what the Statistical Institute of Jamaica is saying.
yes,
As
sir.
academic, we don't believe that. Okay, what this is what we believe. What we would say is that Obia is historically an African spirit tradition, promoting African spirituality, that has been used for healing and for connecting one with the divine or one's ancestors. But the religion has been, yes, it's been controversial given colonization, because
Yes, sir.
today we have been colonized to think that it is associated with curse and magic.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And the way in our local context, in our recent experiences,
Yeah.
there are certain places in the island, as it is said up further in the presentation, that it is practiced mostly in rural areas. And you have some people, them like them accost somebody and them say, oh, they make me go St. Thomas for you, they make me go St. Mary for you, and these rural areas, and then
Yes.
that would mean that they're going to obia you. And we see
Yes.
how
Yes.
some
Yes.
people, what happened to some people when them say them obia them. So there's a fear factor as well, you
Yes.
know, especially in deep rural Jamaica. I was talking to a young man and he said he got married into the Clarendon community. He's from Kingston, Portmore, and everything his wife rebukes and says Obia are demons, and he's not used to that where he's from in Portmore. So that validates the point too, that it is practiced more locally in the rural areas.
Yes.
And persons are afraid when they hear it. So it's a lot of unlearning.
But people are also afraid when people start to speak in tongues and rebuke them in Jesus' name. Yes?
It depends. It depends, sir. If the tongues is defending me, I'm not afraid.
I know. But if you're on the other side of the tongues,
Yeah, you have to be afraid. You have to be afraid because they call it down fire.
sorry for cutting, but this is interesting. Anyways, continue with the presentation. Yes, thank you.
All
Thank
right, so we will remove curses from the previous sentence and we move on.
you.
So, all right, so let me pick up there. Even more controversial is the practice of obia, a form of African spiritualism associated with magic and healing. Please cut out curses.
Thank you.
Obia was criminalized by colonial authorities who feared its power as a form of resistance among enslaved Africans. Although still technically illegal, it remains widely practiced in secret. Many Jamaicans, including politicians and business leaders, are rumored to seek the guidance of Obia practitioners for protection. And if we remember our history well, we know that Edward Siaga was of the revival religion. He was a revivalist. And that's one of the religion that I'm told practices certain, you know, magic, black magic, and stuff. As a matter of fact, when you pass by like one of they're always on the road having meetings, and you will see them practice some things, and spirit take up some people and they manifest some ways, and it causes you to be afraid,
Well, at one
So
time,
Edward Siaga.
at one time, the evangelicals and the Pentecostals were closely associated with JLP, and then the mainline churches like the Anglicans and the Roman Catholic and the United Church and so on. They were mainly PNP. I don't know if the same. It's different now, but it's quite
I
interesting
think it's
that
basically the same. I think it's the
same thing
same
going
stuff.
on. Oh, and Edward Siaga now. It's kind of interesting. Edward Siaga. Here's a white man from Turkey. He is, wow, embracing the African traditionalists. Anyways, continue, guys. But this is
I found that
yeah,
with him, sir, a lot. Even in terms of migrating, I often heard him say when he was the only one in the line trying to get a visa to stay in Jamaica. Everybody else was trying to get a visa to leave. As a
yes.
little girl, I remember that. So, those are the things. Those
But
are the things.
that was a very good point that you. This is a very powerful point. Very good that you pointed out here. Thank you.
Yes, sir. So, all right. So it said that politicians seek Obia for protection, success, and revenge. Despite its historical repression, Obia continues to be a vital part of Jamaica's spiritual identity. So we move on now to Rastafarianism, and this is another major religious movement in Jamaica, which emerged in the 1930s as a form of resistance against colonial oppression and the legacy of slavery. Inspired by the teachings of Marcus Garvey, Rastafarianism sees Africa, particularly Ethiopia, as the true homeland of the African diaspora. Rastafarianism rejects Western materialism and promotes natural living, spiritual enlightenment, and self sufficiency. Despite its cultural contributions, particularly through reggae music, Rastafarians have historically faced discrimination and state repression. The 19, the 19, sorry, sir, my phone wrong. Where was I? Oh, the 1963 Coral Gardens massacre, in which Jamaican security forces brutally attacked a Rastafarian community, exemplifies the government's effort to suppress the movement. Although perceptions of Rastafarianism have improved in recent years, many Rastas still face social exclusion. And sir, when I was doing this part of the presentation, when we were looking at it, I was thinking, when we were growing up, Sister Earletta call you back, I'm in a class. When we were growing up and young people would go to university, and then my grandmother always say, like, when them come back with them head not up and talking a lot of stuff, my grandmother always say, anytime you see them turn up at university there, a mad picnic them come back. But to come to think of it, I think maybe they identified with Rastafarianism And I'm not promoting Rastafarianism. I'm thinking maybe they identified with it because they too didn't see the need to embrace this European culture. They are naturally black people and they are naturally more drawn to the blackness in them, and then the information that they would have been exposed to on the university campuses caused them to, identify more with that, and choose to resist that kind of way of life that was being forced upon them. That's just my thinking. And this information is also from the Statistical Institute of Jamaica 2019. Next slide, Renee. So we're going to look at the demographics as well. As of 2020, Jamaica's population is approximately 2.96 million. This is the Statistical Institute of Jamaica 2020. The country has a diverse population with 92.1% identifying as Black or Afro-Jamaican, Statistical Institute. Here's a more in-depth look at Jamaican demographics, population and growth. Population, approximately 2.8 million, 2023. Population growth rate, the annual population growth rate was at 0.8%. In 2022, urbanization, over half of the population lives in urban areas, and we know that for a fact because we have the overcrowded cities and the rural communities are underdeveloped, and there are large land masses. Young people are no longer interested in farming. They move to corporate Jamaica, and so this statistic, we can relate to it on the ground. Over half of the population lives in urban areas. Migration, many Jamaicans have migrated to the United States, Canada, and the United Kingdom. Thank you, Renee. Next slide. Racial demographics, ethnic, Afro-Jamaican, 76.3%, Afro-European, 15.1%, Indian and Afro-Indian, 3.4%, white, 3.2%, Chinese or Afro-Chinese, 1.2%, others, 0.8%. And these small groups sway most of the influence over the country, over the larger group. That's my opinion. I'm not saying it's Statistical Institute opinion, but that's what I observe on the ground. So we look now at social and economic factors. This goes into it. Wealth distribution, wealth and economic power are disproportionately held by white Jamaicans, Chinese Jamaicans, Lebanese, Syrians, Jamaicans, Indian Jamaicans, and mixed race Jamaicans. Life expectancy slightly lower than average, around 74 years. Fertility rate slightly below the natural replacement rate. Social class in Jamaica is often divided along racial lines, with wealthier and more powerful Jamaicans generally being white, brown, mixed race, while poor Jamaicans are mostly Black. See? Yes. Thank you, Renee. Next slide. Okay, so my colleague Renee will look at the history of.
Wait, hold on. Go back
Yes,
to that.
sir.
Back to that previous slide and make that point. So you said in terms of the ethnic composition, and earlier you guys said in terms of the influences of Jamaica, you talk about the Indians, the Chinese, and so on. I don't know. You guys didn't mention anything about the Taino people, whether or not there's any kind of influences from. I still believe that many
Yes,
of the.
sir. We said that. We said that above in terms of somewhere up top there. We spoke about them and the fact that they influence the cuisine and.
Oh, okay. When you say the Indians, you're not talking about the Indian people from India.
No, sir. No, sir.
Who are you talking about?
Not necessarily. They're a part of it too. They're a part of it too.
Okay.
And they're categorized in that group. I guess it's a grouping of them, both the Tainos, those who migrated from India, and whatever other Indian heritage we have here.
Indian, I guess. I'm not sure, but I don't think they usually include the Taino or the Arawakan tribe here. If they did, they do have other.
Yes, sir.
They do have other, but I like that you put the issue of wealth distribution. You said that wealth and economic power are disproportionately held by white
White
Jamaicans,
Jamaican.
Chinese Jamaicans, Lebanese, Syrian Jamaicans, Indian Jamaicans, and mixed race Jamaicans.
Yes, sir.
I am I want to zero in on this. I'm sorry. I have to zero in on it. This is a very important point. Do not move the screen from where you have it. This is a point that I have to that I am so happy. Now this is what I this is good. This is a good presentation. This is I like the data, but the data suggests a lot. Look at that. You when you look at the racial demographics in Jamaica, so when you look at Jamaica, Jamaica has Afro-Caribbean. 76% of the population is Afro-Jamaican,
I
or
agree. Yes, sir.
another 15% is Afro-European. So I mean, over 90%. I mean, there's a large number of African influence, African heritage. Yet, I mean, you see the point I'm making here. A large amount of African influence, African heritage, Afro Chinese, Afro this, Afro that. But yet still we are more European than anything else. But anyways, then you go down to social and economic factors. In terms of wealth distribution, you said wealth and economic power. And by the way, you must have gotten that from the textbook. The textbook, Neoliberalism, Globalization, Economic Income Inequality, Poverty and Resistance. And by the way, I'm hoping that when you present the information, some of the information you would, if you're talking about Jamaica, you'll some of these things is in your textbook. So that's
Yes, sir.
a reference point there. And the book talks about wealth distribution. This is where did you get this information from the textbook? Yes, it says wealth.
Leroy, I'm not sure where Leroy. Leroy is the one who contributed this part of the presentation, sir. I'm not sure. I'll find out from him though.
You see, he gets this from the book because we talk about this in neoliberalism. I talk about this, but it's a very important concept here. Wealth and economic power are disproportionately held by white Jamaicans, Chinese Jamaicans, Lebanese, Syrians. And I wish you had provided some kind of numbers in terms of you. If you look at in terms of the ethnic composition,
Yes, sir.
very few people are white, very few people are Chinese. Okay, but yet they are the wealthiest
Yes, sir.
and they have most of the power in the country. Isn't that interesting?
It's interesting, sir, and it goes to show that not much has changed since colonialism.
Yeah,
Not much has changed. We have had some changes, but where the changes are really necessary, there's not much change.
yeah, yeah. This is quite interesting, and I think that was part of the thinking in by Michael Manley in the 70s, and why and that the argument and of populism. If you read the origins of democratic socialism in Jamaica by Keith and Keith. Um, I have the book here somewhere, but they talk about the social origins of democratic socialism in Jamaica, and he talks about the the fact that because of what was going on in the 60s and in the 70s and so on and so forth, the Michael Manley government and the Manley government were able to capitalize on this idea of populism. Um, And many people thought that when the country was doing well between 1957 and the mid 1960s, the government used the money to just spend wantonly on the populace and the population because what they were trying to do is that they were trying to yes, they were trying to promote equality, but equality through social welfare, not necessarily. You cannot promote equality through social welfare. Okay, unless social welfare is aggressively aimed at developing the the um the educational prowess of the people, the intellectual prowess of the people, the creative and productive juices of the people. Do you understand the point I'm making? Yes. So this is quite interesting. But so we are still dealing with the issue today where the browner you are, or if you're white, then you control majority of the wealth in Jamaica. All right, continue.
Yes, sir. So, all right. So I guess can we move to the next slide? Oh, we didn't look at life expectancy. Oh, we did. We did. Social class. I don't social class. Social class in Jamaica is often divided among racial lines, with wealthier and more powerful Jamaicans generally being white and brown, mixed race, while poor Jamaicans are mostly black. So true. Like myself.
Wherever you go. Oh my God.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. So I'll be looking at the history of Jamaica. The island was first settled around 600 to 650 AD by the Redware people, known for their distinctive pottery. By approximately 800 AD, the Arawak-speaking Taino arrived, naming the island Jamaica, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, meaning land of wood and water. These indigenous communities thrived until European contact. Christopher Columbus landed in Jamaica in 1494, claiming it for Spain. The Spanish established settlements and enslaved the Taino population, leading to their significant decline due to overwork and introduced diseases. By the early 17th century, the Taino were virtually extinct. In 1655, the English seized Jamaica from the Spanish, establishing it as a colony primarily focused on sugarcane production. This led to the importation of a large African slave population to work on plantations. The harsh conditions sparked numerous slave rebellions, including Tacky's Revolt in 1760, the abolition of the slave trade in 1807, and slavery itself in 1834 marked significant turning points. Post-emancipation, the economy diversified with the introduction of crops like bananas and the mining of bauxite in the 20th century. Political movements gained momentum, culminating in Jamaica's independence on August 6, 1962. Since gaining independence, Jamaica has navigated challenges including economic fluctuations, political shifts, and social issues. The nation has made notable contributions globally, particularly in music with genres like reggae and in sports through athletics. Efforts continue toward economic development and addressing social challenges. According to the mother of the West Indian island is like a woman with a history. She has had her experiences and has lived her life rapidly. She has enjoyed a fever of prosperity founded upon these incalculable treasures poured into her lap by the old-time buccaneer pirates. She has suffered earthquake, famine, pestilence, fire, and death, and she has been the home of cruel, merciless slavery, hardly second to that practiced by the Spaniards themselves. Other countries have taken centuries to go from their primitive life to the flower and fruit of prosperity into the seed of time of decrepitude decrepitude. Jamaica has lived through it all in a few years. Howard Pyle. Now we'll look at the current position of Jamaica. As of April 2025, Jamaica is navigating a complex landscape marked by economic challenges, political transitions, and social issues. Jamaica is advancing toward becoming a republic. In December 2024, the Constitution, Republic Act 2024, was introduced in the House of Representatives to replace the British monarch with a Jamaican president as head of state. This bill is under review with the debates expected to continue through March 2025. Prime Minister Andrew Holness has been a proponent of this transition, aligning Jamaica with other former British colonies seeking full sovereignty. Jamaica's economy has diversified, including tourism, bauxite, alumina exports, remittances, and financial services. Real GDP grew by 2.6% in 2023 through setbacks like drought and hurricanes have posed challenges. Infrastructure investments such as transportation upgrade is improving public services. The government continues efforts to reduce debt while promoting sustainable economic growth. Continuing, Jamaica has implemented modern highways, bridges, and public transit investment, including 200 new buses for the public transport system, expansion in housing projects to accommodate urban population growth, renewable energy projects are being integrated into infrastructure development. Jamaica has made significant progress in governance, economic diversification, infrastructure, education, and cultural influence. However, economic inequality and climate vulnerability persist. The nation's continued development hinges on sustainable policies, investment in human capital, and strengthening institutions to foster long-term stability and growth. Influential and notable figures in Jamaica. First, we have Marcus Garvey. Marcus Garvey was born in 1887 and died 1940. He played a crucial role in Jamaica as a Pan-African leader, political advocate, economic developer, educator, and national hero. He founded the Universal Negro Improvement Association, otherwise called UNIA, to promote Black pride, unity, and self-reliance. Through his Black Star Line and Negro Factories Corporation, he encouraged economic independence for Black people. His teaching on racial pride influenced Jamaica's national identity and the Rastafari movement. Though he never held a political office, he advocated for self-governance and education as tools for empowerment. In 1969, he was declared a national hero of Jamaica for his lasting impact on Black consciousness and Jamaican society. Next, we have Bob Marley. Robert Nesta Marley, otherwise called Bob Marley, played a crucial role in bringing reggae music and Rastafarian culture to the world stage. His music, deeply rooted in Jamaican experiences, helped international audiences appreciate the island's rich traditions, struggles, and spiritual beliefs. Bob Marley used his music as a tool for social change, advocating for unity and an end to political violence in Jamaica. His famous One Love Peace concert in 1978 saw him bring together rival political leaders Michael Manley and Edward Seaga to shake hands on stage, symbolizing a call for national peace. His global boost. Hold on, I can't see. Hold on. Give me 1 minute, please. I'm not seeing the top. Miss Julian, can you read the top for me? Something is blocking the top. All right, hold on. Give me a minute, sir. I'm trying to move this.
I'm saying my mic was off. Renee, I'm saying it would just be the topic at the top. The information there is accurate. So you just pick up from there.
All right, can you read the first line? I'm unable to see the first line.
Its global success helped boost Jamaica's economy through tourism, music sales, and international interest in the country.
All right,
Today,
today Bob
okay.
Marley's legacy continues to attract visitors to places like the Bob Marley Museum in Kingston. Many of Marley's songs, such as Get Up, Stand Up, and Redemption Song, addressed oppression, poverty, and human rights. His messages inspired not only Jamaicans, but also oppressed people worldwide to fight for justice. Bob Marley remains one of Jamaica's most beloved figures. His image and lyrics continue to be used in national celebration and branding. In 1981, he was awarded the Order of Merit, one of Jamaica's highest honors. Through his music, Marley spread the teachings of Rastafari, emphasizing African pride, self-determination, and spiritual consciousness. He played a key role in shaping Jamaica's identity as a nation proud of its African heritage. Bob Marley was more than just a musician. He was a symbol of hope, resistance, and cultural pride for Jamaica and the world. His legacy continues to shape the island's identity today. Now we look at Miss Lou. A lasting impact on Jamaican culture through her work as a poet, storyteller, educator, and cultural ambassador. Her main contributions include promoting Jamaican patois. She elevated Jamaican Creole by using it in poetry, storytelling, and theater, proving it was legitimate and expressive language. Through her radio and television programs, Ring Ding, she taught children traditional Jamaican stories, songs, and proverbs, keeping the island's oral traditions alive. She advocated for cultural identity. She encouraged Jamaicans to embrace their heritage and not see patois as bad English, thus fostering national pride. She influenced Jamaican literature and music. Her style of spoken word poetry influenced reggae and dancehall artists, including Bob Marley, by reinforcing the importance of storytelling in Jamaican music. Global representation of Jamaica culture. As a Jamaica's cultural ambassador, she performed worldwide, promoting Jamaican tradition, folklore, and dialect on an international stage. Miss Lou is recognized as one of Jamaica's important cultural figures. Her work helped preserve and celebrate unique language and traditions, ensuring that future generations remain connected to their roots. Next, we look at Barbados.
All right. So this is the flag of Barbados. Thank you, Renee.
Before you go to Barbados, I was looking at, you said earlier, you talked about when Christopher Columbus came to the island, he found the Taino people there, and prior to the Taino people were the Redere people, or the Redware people. But you although I'm happy that you talk about the fact that you begin, I'm happy you begin with the Arawakan people, the Tainos, or the original people there. However, you still skipped over African influence. And it could, and I understand why, because it's difficult to find any information that have to do with African influence that predate Columbus' arrival to the Caribbean. And of course, I have said in this class, in the beginning, and if you go online, if you go on the JTS online, I talk about they came before Columbus. The African presence in ancient America, written by Ivan van Sertima, a book written in 1975, published in 1975, but it's available. I bought a copy of it. It came in 2 days. They came before us, or they came before Columbus, the African presence in ancient America, by Ivan van Sertima. And he talks about, and he said in chapter 1, page 1, the secret route from Guinea. He said, and I'm going to have you continue, but listen to what he said here. And he, Columbus, wanted to find out what the Indians of Hispaniola had told him. Columbus wanted to find out what the Indians of Hispaniola had told him, that there had come to it, that they had come to it. The Indians from Hispaniola, who Columbus saw, the Indians said to Columbus that they came to Hispaniola from South and Southeast Negro people. From South and Southeast Negro people. Remember, the Indians were brought there. Earlier you said the Red Ware people, and you talk about Lucayan people. Not many Lucayan exist today. And then after that you have the Taino people. And it seems as if the Indians were saying that, well, we came there. How did we come there? Travelers from Africa, the Negro people, brought us there. They had come to Hispaniola, to the Caribbean, or various parts from the South and Southeast Negro people. So the Negro people in the South and the Southeast brought them there, who brought those spear points made of a metal which they call guanin. So they brought with them spears. They brought with them certain artifacts that they call guanim. And these guanim, I'm going to tell you what the guanims were, of which he had sent to the king. So the Indians had guanims, and he wanted to know, and Columbus was very inquisitive. He wanted to know, how did you get these gold? Where you get these, how you got here, and where you got these gold from, these pieces. And of course, they told him where it came from. And of course, Columbus sent the guanims to the king, to King Ferdinand. He sent them to the king and the queen, Queen Victoria, for assaying, and which was found to have 32 parts, 18 of gold, 6 of silver, and 8 of copper. It continues, African guanines were alloys of gold containing copper for the sake of its odor. For it seems that the Negroes like to smell their wealth. The guanines, or the guanines, brought home by Columbus were assayed in Spain and were found to contain the same ratio of alloy as those in African Guinea. So when Columbus came to the Caribbean, he found some gold, not a lot. And he thought there was gold in the Caribbean, but then they realized there's not much gold in the Caribbean. They didn't really find much gold. The gold that they found in the Caribbean was gold that came from the Africans. Isn't that interesting?
It is, sir. It is very interesting.
And the book goes on to talk about, it shows a plate, the Black Pharaoh, Tabaka, that the 25th dynasty. Sorry, that's not what I want to talk about. He talks about the Negro stonehead from Veracruz, classic period, in American Museum of Natural History, New York. That is similar to Africa, to what is to the to some of the Negroid stones in Africa. And then he talks about when Christopher Columbus came back to Ferdinand after the first encounter in the Caribbean. When he went back, he brought some of the Indians with him, some of the Taino people. And King Ferdinand asked him about some of the Taino people. Where did he get these people from? Who are these people? And they had and he described the people. And when you look at the description, and so many of this came from the archives, from the diary of many historians and Columbus himself. The description is that they painted their face black. Their hair was harsh as gold. Was coarse and harsh. Their eyebrow coarse. And the description, when you look at the characteristics of the characteristics of the Indians, the description of the Indians, they were black people, in a sense. Quite interesting. So the point I'm trying to make is, as I listen to your presentation, it's an improvement from saying that Christopher Columbus discovered Jamaica, but you begin with the original people, the information that we have. But what we don't hear yet is the African influence, okay, and how Africa also, some of the artifacts, some of the history, the people themselves are African.
Sir.
Yeah.
Interesting that you interjected that just now, because it's the first time I'm hearing that there were Africans here before Columbus. The history that was presented to us is that the Tainos were here, and we know that history very well. So I really appreciate that. And what I find with this course is that there's so much. It is so wide. It is so deep. So much that we do not know, and we are learning in this course and will continue to learn. This week I went online, I was watching some of your posts online, and I mean, it's a lot, sir. It's a lot of information. Yes. But we're open to learning, and we're learning, but it's going to take time for us, because what you're saying just now is news to me. I didn't even know that.
Yes.
I didn't know that.
Thank you. We'll continue.
Sir. Yes, sir. So Barbados, we're going to look at Barbados now. This is the Barbados flag. And while we're presenting, you or our colleagues and sir can, make the comparison between both countries, because there are some differences. Go ahead, Renee. Thank you. First slide. All right, so this is a map of Barbados. Yes, you can see it's much smaller than the Jamaican map. All right, so next slide. So the socio-political economy of Barbados. Compared to Jamaica, Barbados has historically been seen as a more stable economy, which we know for a fact. Successful Caribbean nation. Its transition from a based economy to a modern service economy has been relatively smooth, with strong financial and tourism sectors. However, beneath the apparent stability lies deep-rooted inequalities and lingering colonial structures. Barbados was one of the wealthiest British colonies due to its highly profitable sugar plantations. However, this wealth was built on the brutal exploration of enslaved Africans. After emancipation, the economic power remained concentrated in the hands of white plantation owners, many of whom transitioned into banking, real estate, and other lucrative industries. This created a racial and class divide that persists today. While Black Barbadians dominate the political sphere, much of the country's economic power is still controlled by the white elite. And apart from the Barbados having a more stable economy, we can relate to the same thing that they are experiencing, where a lot of the power remains in the hands of the small group of white elite. So religion, Christianity is the dominant religion in Barbados, with the Anglican Church playing a historically significant role in the country's social and political landscape. During colonial rule, the church was a tool of social culture used to justify slavery and maintain the racial hierarchy. Even today, the Anglican Church continues to hold considerable influence, and the same in Jamaica, particularly among the island's elite, like Jamaica, Barbados, also has a hidden history of African spiritual practices, particularly Obia. Although officially outlawed in Barbados as well, Obia has been an integral part of Barbadian society since the days of slavery, when enslaved Africans used spiritual practices as a form of resistance and healing. Many Bajans secretly consult Obia practitioners for protection, guidance, and justice through the practice, though the practice is often stigmatized. Another lesser known aspect of Barbadian religious life is the influence of Freemasonry. Some believe that Freemasonry plays a significant role in Barbadian politics and business, with secret societies allegedly controlling key economic and governmental decisions. While these claims are difficult to verify, the idea of an elite group maintaining hidden power aligns with the broader history of racial and economic inequality in Barbados is not far-fetched. Next slide. So these are some pictures demonstrating religions that we just looked at. The main religion, which is Christianity, and then we have other influences like the Anglican and the Freemason Society. And if you notice, just white men we are seeing here as the main influencers. Yes, Renee, next slide. So this is the demographic, and I noticed our colleague Leroy has joined. So I'm going to turn over to him to present on this part of the information that he contributed to the group. Are you there, Leroy? I see your name up here. Leroy Johnson. Can we just give him a minute to Leroy? Because I see that he joined, but I don't know what his situation is, if he's able to contribute. But I would want to give him the opportunity to do so since he contributed this information. Are you there, Leroy? All right, so I'll continue, and if he comes on, I just allow him. Can I do that, sir?
Go ahead.
All right, so the demographics of Barbados 2024 is, as of January 2025, the population of Barbados was estimated to be 291,967 people. This is an increase of 0.33%, 960 people, compared to population of 291.7 the year before. In 2024, the natural increase was positive as the number of births exceeded the number of deaths by 509. Due to external migration, the population increased by 451. The sex ratio of the total population was 0.985, 985 males per 1,000 female, which is lower than global sex ratio. The global sex ratio in the world was approximately 1,016 male to 1,000 female as of 2024. Below are the key figures for Barbados population in 2024: 3,559 live births, 3,050 deaths, natural increase 509 people, net migration 451 people, 144,880 males as of December 2024, 147,087 females as of December 2024. Demographics continue. During 2025, Barbados population is projected to increase by 963 people and reach 292,930 in the beginning of 2026. The natural increase is expected to be positive as the number of births will exceed the number of deaths by 511. External migration previous year level, the population will increase by 453 due to the migration reasons. It means that the number of people who move to Barbados to which they are not native in order to settle there as permanent residents, immigrants, will prevail over the number of people who leave the country to settle permanently in another country, immigrants. Population change rate in 2025. According to our estimations, daily change rates of Barbados population in 2025 will be the following: 10 live births, average per day, 0.8 deaths, average per day, 0.35 in an hour, 1 immigrant, average per day, 0.505 in an hour. The population of Barbados will increase by 3 persons daily in 2025. Next slide, Renee.
So now we look at the history
Yes,
of Barbados.
yes.
Barbados, the easternmost island in the Caribbean, has a rich and complex history shaped by indigenous settlements, European colonization, African enslavement, and eventual independence. Originally inhabited by the Arawaks and later the more warlike Caribs, the island was first visited by the Europeans in the early 16th century, when Portuguese explorers passed through but did not settle. In 1625, English captain John Powell claimed Barbados for England, and by 1627, a permanent British settlement was established under Henry Powell. By the mid 1600s, the island had become a major producer of sugar, leading to the establishment of plantations and the forced importation of enslaved Africans to work the fields. The island soon became one of the wealthiest British colonies due to the sugar economy. Although the British Abolition of Slave Trade Act 1807 ended the transatlantic slave trade, slavery itself continued until 1834, followed by an apprenticeship system that lasted until 1838. After emancipation and social inequalities persisted, as plantation owners retained control over land and wealth, in 1837 social unrest erupted in riots led by Clement Paine, marking a turning point for workers' rights and political reform. The Barbados Labour Party, founded in 1938, played a key role in advancing these reforms. Barbados was briefly part of the West Indies Federation from 1958 to 1962, a short-lived attempt at Caribbean political unity. After the Federation dissolved, Barbados pursued independence, which was achieved on November 30, 1966, with Errol Barrow as the first Prime Minister. In the 21st century, Barbados made an historic move to sever its final colonial ties. On November 30, 2021, it officially became a republic, removing Queen Elizabeth II as head of state and appointing Sandra Bass as its president. Current position of Barbados. Barbados has undergone a remarkable transformation from its early indigenous settlements to its current status as a republic. This journey encompasses periods of colonization, economic shifts, and cultural evolution. As of April 2025, Barbados continues to make significant strides in economic growth, political leadership, and tourism development. In the first 9 months of 2024, Barbados experienced a 3.9% growth, driven by robust performances in tourism, business services, and construction sectors. Inflation moderated to an average rate of 2.4%, and, and unemployment declined to 7.7% by June 2024. With 2,100 additional individuals joining the workforce, the country's external position remains strong, marked by international reserves equivalent to 31.2 weeks of imports. In February 2025, Barbados hosted the 48th regular meeting of the Caribbean Community, CARICOM, heads of government under the theme Strength in Unity, Forging Caribbean Resilience, Inclusive Growth and Sustainable Development. Prime Minister Mia Amor Motley, serving as the CARICOM chair, emphasized the importance of fully implementing CARICOM Single Market and Economy (CSME) to enhance regional economic resilience. Discussions also address pressing issues such as food and nutrition, security, climate change, and digital resilience. Barbados has been recognized as a top travel destination for 2025 by National Geographic, highlighting its historical significance and cultural offerings. The island's commitment to sustainable tourism and its rich heritage continue to attract international visitors. Barbados has been recognized as a top travel destination. Oh, that's repeating. Overall, Barbados is demonstrating resilience and proactive leadership in fostering economic growth, regional cooperation, and sustainable tourism development. Now we look at influential figures in Barbados. First, we have Sir Grantley Adams, born in 1898 and died 1971. He was a pioneering political leader and the Barbados Labour Party in 1938, which played a key role in the country's social and economic development. He championed the fight for better wages and working conditions for Barbadians. He was the first and only Prime Minister of the West Indies Federation, advocating for regional unity. And if you looked in the corner, you will see a picture of him. Then we have Errol Barrow. He's known as the father of independence, leading Barbados to independence from Britain in 1966. Served as first Prime Minister and implemented significant social and economic reforms, including free secondary education for all Barbadians, industrialization, and diversification of the economy beyond sugar production, strengthened infrastructure, including roads and the Grantley Adams International Airport. Another notable figure is Mia Motley. She became the first female Prime Minister of Barbados in 2018, led Barbados in its historic transition to a republic in 2021. As was said before, she advocated for climate change policies on the global stage, pushing for small island nation rights at COP summits. She strengthened Barbados' economy. So she was the first prime minister, and she's still the prime minister of Barbados. And this is the end of our presentation. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Hello,
Sir?
sir.
I'm still here. Sorry. Have you looked at, by the way, have you compared the GDP per capita between Barbados and Jamaica?
Barbados is way less, sir. Barbados is way less. I think that's owing to the fact that it's a smaller country, or
No, no,
their
no,
country
no,
is
no.
more regulated, better regulated than ours.
No, GDP, the GDP per capita, which GDP means gross domestic product. Barbados per capita, the population. Okay, so I mean, total, of course, in terms of the total, then of course it will be Jamaica because there's more people in Jamaica. But when you look at it per capita, in other words, on average, what each person produce in each country, okay, it's significantly higher in Barbados. Barbados is significant. Barbados is one of those standalone. It's one of those. When I did my research and I wrote Neoliberalism, I also did a comparison in terms of look at how structural adjustment has affected countries of the global south, with Jamaica as a case study. But I also look at what happened in Guyana, what happened in Barbados. Barbados is almost a success story because they did not follow the terms and conditions of some of the agreements. In fact, they have a social welfare program that is even more elaborate than other countries in the Caribbean, almost resemble that of the US. A pension scheme plan and so on. Jamaicans have a very good pension, relatively good pension. But it's relatively the pension is okay, but in terms of welfare, their welfare programs taking care of the needy, they have a really good program in terms of if you lose employment. I think Barbados developed unemployment insurance. Jamaica has not gotten that far yet. When Jamaica starts to develop unemployment insurance, we're really developed and advanced. But Barbados, they have unemployment insurance. Barbados, they are now an independent country. I mean, a fully independent country, in the sense that um, um, they do not have a constitutional monarchy. They have a president. They don't have a prime minister. And okay, I think since 2021, yes. And uh, Rihanna is from Barbados. She's a billionaire. I think we have billionaires in Jamaica, from Jamaica as well. A few billionaires. Um, I think is it Wayne Chen, the gentleman from Canada who is from Jamaica. He's a billionaire, but I don't know. Yeah, so, but his wealth his wealth didn't come from Jamaica. It came from being in Canada. They said some people have other ideas about that. But thank you very much for your presentation. Anybody have any questions for the group?
No, sir.
Um, and by the way, Barbados they applied a baseline tariff of 10% to Barbados. So Barbados, there was a baseline tariff of 10%. You see how, and by the way, Barbados economy, it surpasses Jamaica's economy. Okay, there have been consistent growth, economic growth in Barbados. Barbados, they're doing relatively well. It's a smaller country, but thank you so much. before I move to the next thing, what I wanted to point out, if you read for the group, if you read Neoliberalism, chapter 3 provides a brief overview of Jamaica's socio-political and economic context. And I have said that between 1494 to 1960s, historically Jamaica was stratified along racial and class lines, stemming from the plantation system, and that Jamaica became a colony of Britain in 1655 after Britain successfully defeated Spain, which profited from and controlled the island's wealth for a century. Christopher Columbus opened Jamaica to the global trading map in 1494 when he landed accidentally or buck up on an inhabited West Indian island. This was the advent of colonial capitalism, where European colonists exploited the natives, Taino people's labor, abused their women, and annihilated their race in Jamaica. But I don't know if it was annihilation of their race, but it was more it was annihilation because in terms of removing them from history, from the annals of history, in a sense. But they did not. They tried. But
Sir,
yeah, go ahead.
looking at the transition from slavery, from colonialism,
Yeah.
I thought Jamaica did well before I saw Barbados history, because I know that compared to Haiti, Jamaica did very well. But looking at Barbados, we could have done better. I mean, they seem to be doing something right that we're not doing here.
Jamaica is a larger economy. It's a big economy, yes. Jamaica is a larger economy in terms of the economy in total. But in terms of per capita, the population, yes, they're doing well as a small country. But yes, they've done some things well that we can learn from. And I guess the population, the makeup of the population is quite interesting. But we will stop here and we're going to take a 5 minutes break, and when we come back, I will present I will share my reflection looking at should theology transcend culture and African civilization. By revisiting African civilization, we may preserve and reclaim African spirituality. By the way, if I do what the global south is, you guys should be able to tell me what the global south is. Countries that were not global south. I'm not, when I talk about the global south, I'm not necessarily talking about geographically speaking, but I'm talking economically. Countries were the countries that are seen as developing countries, or countries that were formerly called third world countries, have the designation global south countries. Okay, global south. That's important to note. The global north countries are the post-industrial countries. Anything else that you would need to, when we talk about the idea of post-colonialism, post-colonialism does not suggest that colonialism has ended. Okay, we define colonialism as the lingering effects, the consequences, the political consequences, the historical consequences, the lingering effects of colonialism that continue to persist today. Post-colonialism suggests that colonialism still exists, but in different forms. Colonialism itself means control. Colonialism, but colonialism in this sense is a systematic control. Systematic control. So please remember that it's the depersonalization of people. Fanon describes colonization as what? The depersonalization of humanity. That's how Fanon defines colonialism. It's very important to remember that. Please remember that.
Sir, are you giving us our exam topics now?
Your exam topics. I'm telling you some things to be mindful of. Yeah, I'm giving you some things to be mindful of, some important terms that you're gonna see come up in the exam: colonialism, post-colonialism, colonialism, global south, global north, Obia as against voodoo, as against revivalism, or revivalism is an organized institution. religion, while Obia is not a religion. It's a practice. Yes, um, spiritual. It's a spirit. It's a practice. Please remember that. Let me I think that's about it. I'm just giving you some very important things to latch onto. But let's take a quick 5 minutes break. We'll be right back after this. All right, we are back. I had done a previous class recording. I think it was the last semester, looking at should Caribbean Thought Lecture 9, should theology transcend culture, exploring Afro-Caribbean beliefs, so on and so forth, which I thought you may find interesting. Here we are. Which I mean, I thought we wouldn't need to redo it. You will probably find this discussion or lecture interesting. But should theology transcend culture? That is what we're contending for here. Here we go. Then as we get into theology, because part of what we do in this course is to consider theological concepts. When you study society, a society's practices and traditions, more often than not, are related to the theology, the understanding of God. If you study Jewish society and study the Torah, a lot of that stems from that particular society's culture and their understanding of God. The question is, let me ensure that I'm recording. I am recording. The question is, should theology transcend culture? Should theology transcend culture? That's a good question I'm going to ask you guys. And we're going to delve into that a little bit, because since we're talking about theology, one of the concepts we study in Caribbean thought is theology. But I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to talk about theology by just coming to class and saying, okay, this is Caribbean theology. This is a practical course that looks at Caribbean issues, but from a subaltern as post-colonial skeptics, or with a little bit of skepticism. Because we're saying that Caribbean, we started from the outset to say Caribbean is an invention. Does that mean our theology? When you study Jewish society, and I'm just using Jewish society as an example, and a lot of what we call Christianity today stems from, in some part, a Jewish or Hebrew understanding of, and not just Hebrew or Jewish understanding of, but actual Jewish traditions. But societies have always married. There's always been a marriage between societies. As people meet other people, they incorporate other traditions. But part of the problem of marriage and merging traditions is more often than not, some traditions get left behind, or some traditions are prioritized over others, especially when it depends on the experiences of a people who have come out of a post-colonial experience. When you study the Torah or the Jewish people, the Hebrew, the Judaism is a sect of, a segment of Hebrew. But when you study the Torah, the Torah is really, the Torah cannot be this. When you study the Torah, you cannot look at it only as a theological book. You can't just, and you can't look at it devoid of its human inspirations. As much as we talk about biblical scriptures and biblical writings are inspired by God, those are words of people appealing, and men have always done that. Now men appeal to science to today, but prior to the Renaissance and Reformation, the appeal was to God. The Bible is the inspired word of God, or the Quran is the inspired word of Allah. Or Torah is the inspired word. But if you study societies, part of studying societies, I said to you, when you study society, you ask the question, in whose interest was the society developed? In whose interest and for who? Say, for example, I say to you right now, Israel said to the Palestinians, we will free you to do whatever you want to do, to determine your own independence. But it has to be an independence and a freedom that we choose for you. You can't do XYZ. You cannot. To do whatever you want to do, to determine your own independence. But it has to be an independence and a freedom that we choose for you. You can't do XYZ. You cannot. But anyway, society, you study in whose interest a society. And part of studying society, studying the culture, the way of life for people, studying their philosophy, their theology, their beliefs, their traditions, their history, their challenges. That's part of studying a society. And when you start to study like Greek society and start to read people like Homer or Hesiod's Theogony, and start to study Greek society or the foundations of knowledge and from Homer all the way up, you will find and study traditions, how every tradition and how every epoch have a particular way of positioning and purporting a representation of their understanding of history or culture. Some people say that history for the future. Men live now, and then men in the future make sense of it. But the point I'm trying to make as we begin to consider theology and society is that you cannot divorce society from a people. And in many instances, many people would quote scripture, not realizing that. And when you look at the rabbis in Judaism, the rabbis, they were not just prophets or priests, but they were cultural leaders. You could not divorce the prophets and the priests, the religious leaders, from the cultural leaders. They were almost one and the same. When you study the Torah, you cannot just study it as a religious book. You have to also look at it from the perspective of a cultural book. And that book was used to preserve. Religions is an institution that is used to preserve the culture, the way of life for people. You want to preserve the way of life of a people. But yet still, different peoples today who have inherited cultures and religions from the past still appeal to the Torah and other biblical writings as normative for them, without considering that those biblical writings that they are appealing to are writings that only promote a particular kind of way of life for a particular kind of people. So, say for example, the issue about circumcision, and even in the Caribbean today, some people still practice circumcision, and it has been incorporated into Christianity or in some Christian institutions today, especially with Christianity, morphic or some inheriting, because some Christians, Christianity. Christina, could do, your mic is open. Is it that you wanted to make a point?
No, sir. I didn't even notice that my mic was open.
Okay, all right. We continue. We're looking at, should theology transcend culture? Should theology transcend culture? And I hope you are following the concepts, following the argument, the line of argument. Okay, as academics, we also are engaged in following the line of argument to see the logic and where it leads. This is Caribbean thought. It stems from a messianic kind of Judaism, which some Jews believe was irreligious, ungodly, devilish, witchcraft. At one point, Christianity, as it existed back in the first 100 years of Christianity, Christianity was not widely accepted as part of the culture of, was seen as weird and suspect. But of course, we know that a lot of effort went into making Christianity a normative part of society. And so when one studies society and study theology and Christianity and so on, you have to study the history of that. So when people point to the Torah or the Old Testament and point to a particular way of life as being normative, as being the best, they're actually highlighting a particular culture, a particular way of people, of a particular set of people as being better than, as being the best. But please remember, people also appeal to God, certain behaviors. In order to get people to do certain things, you want to appeal to God. And that is important. So the Torah was, you cannot divorce the Torah and the rabbis and so on as just being you cannot see it just as a biblical book or the word of God. It also must be seen as a cultural book denoting and detailing the way of life of a people so as to preserve that way of life of the people. And so, excuse me, when some people point to the Old Testament as being the way or the ideal, they are pointing to a particular customs of a set of people as being the ideal, as being better than theirs. I taught Caribbean theology before, and I taught it last semester, and I thought that particular lecture was very important, and I'm going to summarize that lecture as I begin to talk about should theology transcend culture, should theology transcend culture? Yet we ask the question, should theology transcend culture? Yet culture is part of theology. Now, when we talk about Caribbean theology involves the contemplation of divine and religious beliefs within the context of the Caribbean region. Again, when we talk about Caribbean theology, what does it involve? It involves what? The study and contemplation of divine and religious beliefs within the context of the Caribbean, the context of the Caribbean region. Theology is, when we talk about theology, theos, logi, logos, the study of God, it is very important to point out here that while we say that you cannot divorce culture from theology, and while many might argue that theology should not transcend culture because culture defines theology, one must understand that irrespective of the culture that has come to shape one's theology and the theology that has come to shape one's culture, what is consistent is that almost every culture considers God. Paul Tillich argues, all right, that theology is man's ultimate concern. Talk about the theology of it. When people talk about the ultimate, we talk about the divine. But there is that each of us have this divine tendency, that tendency to consider that which is the ultimate, that which is beyond us. And some people, it drives them to worship the sun. Some people, it drives them to worship the stars. Some people, it drives them to consider the institution that gives credence to Jesus, Allah, or some other faith experience. But what culture or does not transcend is the reality of a God that is, and when we define, how do we define? But every single culture, and even Caribbean theology, when it contemplates religious beliefs in relation to the divine, it speaks to or consider the divine as being than that which nothing greater can be conceived or imagined. God or the divine or the ultimate is infinite. We are not. Cultures are just ways of life of a people, but the divine and the ultimate, the fact that all cultures bear mark this understanding of the ultimate, what we know that there is something beyond us. There is a God that is beyond us. There is the ultimate, which is infinite, but we are not. God is unlimited, but we are not. Okay? That much we can agree on. Okay? That there is something that is beyond us. God is than that which nothing greater can be conceived or imagined. God is infinite, we are limited. Yet we, in our limitations of mind, have sought to try to understand and relate to that which is beyond us. And then have created rules and regulations that define how we relate to that which we believe is beyond us. And who creates these rules and regulations? Men acting as if they are the only arbiters of truth and the only people who the divine can relate to, and they set the rules of engagement. By the way, I saw an email the other day asking all Brethren people to identify, to report. So if you are with members of the Brethren Church, you haven't seen that email. There's an email asking all members who go to JTS who are part of the Brethren Church to just be, to identify themselves. I even was going to talk about that in class today. The fact when you're part of a group and you're going to an institution, you're being asked to identify yourself. Why? Is it for control? Anyways, I don't want to be seen as radical. I am not a radical person, but I believe in having conversation. Conversation is important. People don't like to have the conversation because they believe that their position is threatened. They don't want people to be exposed to certain knowledge because they believe. But you know, I used to teach apologetics. Apologetics is the use of logic to defend the faith. And I said when I used to teach apologetics, I used to tell the students in apologetics class, I used to tell the students, people shouldn't be afraid to engage other people about their faith. People shouldn't be afraid. People shouldn't be afraid to have their faith challenged. If you are afraid to have your faith challenged to the point where you are hiding from such engagement, that's a problem. It means then you are standing on loose and shaky grounds. Okay? It means you still have not come to terms with your own beliefs and your own faith, and therefore you have to explore it and push it to its logical end. Because we are all unique and God made us unique beings. And we answer ultimately to God, not to man, who have created rules of engagement. Now, it is important to recognize. Go ahead, Julian.
Sir, you moved on, but I'm thinking about what you said about religion informing culture. I'm thinking that religion is informed by the word of God. So, in my opinion, I think the word of God should inform culture. I don't know if
what come first, the egg or the chicken?
The chicken, the egg. The egg.
This is egg no, don't be too, Julian. Don't be. Remember, you're academic. You're thinkers.
Yes, sir. So the egg is the chicken is from the egg, but the chicken lays the egg.
And you come to, and you have to know you are being challenged. What you are, in my mind, the way you have asked the question is a way in which, to me, in my mind, something has pricked your brain in a very significant way. Yet you have asked the question in a very historical way. And something is happening within you, okay? Because, and then I ask the question, who come first? And then you say the question of religion. The Bible should inform religion. And then I will ask the question, who come first? Religion or the Bible? That's, okay, we could ask that question. Then the next question is, first of all, talk about the Bible. Last week, class, if you are a little bit late or didn't hear what I said again, let me say it again. I didn't put it up on the recording yet, so I'm gonna release it last week, Friday, the rest of it this week. But I said in last week class, I mentioned in passing about the Ethiopian Orthodox Church being one of the oldest organized Christian institutions that even have more recordings of the scriptures. And yes, Christianity as a culture came before the Bible, okay? Because the Bible is a book that was compiled. The Bible, the Christian Bible that we have today in Jamaica, or in the Roman Catholic, oh sorry, not the Roman Catholic, the Protestant churches or evangelical churches, are the old King James Version book with 66 books. But we know that I have a Bible that also have the Maccabean books. Some people think, some churches associate those books with the witchcraft and stuff. I mean, and people use redefine a thing so as to control, redefine it so as to tear it down so as to prove their point, or so that they can continue a narrative or continue a particular practice, which is the dominant or the status quo or the privilege, whatever the case is. But the point So the church, so there was Christianity, and then Ignatius decided to Romanize the church. Please remember that. So the church as a religious or religions, religious institutions. I mean, of course, some people would think that the Bible came first, but not necessarily so. I mean, and the Bible was embellished and developed. And anyway, but this is quite interesting. But listen to the point I'm making here, because also when I talk about the Torah, which is a cultural book to preserve the way, when you read the book, the way in which Jews live, the way in which Jews eat, the way in which they bathe, the way in which they, that's important because it helps to preserve and give that culture, those people, continuity. We talk about the preservation of culture or cultural continuity. What is cultural continuity? By the way, have you guys ever studied cultural continuity? That's one thing I think that's lacking in some of our programs, academic programs. Cultural continuity. Even when they study Africology and other courses in cultures and stuff, Marcus Garvey is featured when you start because he is famous, because he promoted this idea of cultural continuity. Okay. Anyways, but keep that point. I'm so sad that this is the last class, but this class is an introductory level class. You now have to do your research beyond this class. But let's pick up with talking about should theology, because some of your questions will be answered in this presentation here as well. Let's pick up.
Okay, sir.
It's that Caribbean theology. It is important to recognize that Caribbean theology encompasses more than just African ancestry. Very important, because when we study the Caribbean, we're not just looking at the African side of us. Okay, the other, when we study Caribbean, it's not, we are a diverse people. We also find influences from various other cultures, such as East Indian, Chinese, stemming from the indentured laborers that came to the Caribbean, indigenous communities, and in some cultures like Guyana, Belize, even in Puerto Rico and some other Caribbean nations, you find a small remnant of indigenous community that remain even after the European influence, and they're still there. You also, okay, so understanding this diversity enriches our perspective, okay? And also, of course, and I should include European. And we talk about the issue, when you study Caribbean, you say that we say that we are hybrid people. What is hybrid? A mixture. Or I usually have the word admixture, additional mixture, mixtures upon mixtures. But one of the key goals of Caribbean theology is to encourage and reclaim cultural identity. One of the key goals of Caribbean theology, or theology in general, theology, is to encourage and reclaim cultural identity. And again, I'm going to point to one of the greatest and best examples, and one of the things I celebrate the Jewish people for. They are very good at reclaiming their cultural identity. They are very good at they can trace their tradition to way back from the beginning of time. They are very good. And if you want to study human history, a very good history to study is the Jewish history. Okay, which has a lot of religious influence. Okay, a lot of traditional religious influence. And what is important about their tradition and their faith and their beliefs, it helps to encourage and reclaim cultural identity. And that is why you find that, say for example, Israel was able to go back to part of Palestine or go back to Jerusalem and reclaim it as their own, much to the protestation and the objections of many Palestine who occupy the region, who say that you guys left, we won, it's now our land, you have no right to the land. But you know, donkey years down the line, Israel, there was the people of Israel, because Israel is not just a nation, they are people, and through their religion, they were able to they're able to preserve their identity and their heritage and to reclaim their land. And that is one of the key goals of Caribbean theology. And I say to you, that is one of the ways in which Caribbean people, or people from Africa who came to the Caribbean, and those who were already here, and who were colonized, that's how that was part of the project, okay, to strip them of their personality, strip them of their history, remove their cultures and so on. And part of that was to, okay, and to remove their any proximity or connection with their religion. And even today, you find that Black and brown people in the Caribbean and even in the Americas look down upon or provide scant regard to their own heritages, to their own histories, to their own traditions and their beliefs, choosing to accept a more Eurocentric form of their tradition than their beliefs. A Eurocentric form. Because I said to you, one of the key goals of Caribbean theology is to encourage and reclaim cultural identity, because that is one of the goals of religious traditions. That's one of the goal of theology. Yet, when you study, if one of the key goals of Caribbean theology is to encourage and reclaim cultural identity, but colonization, one of the acts of colonization was to strip people from their personality and their cultures, their religion, and and to corrupt it as being nothing, as being less than. Why? Why is that so? Why was it important as part of the colonization process to remove any kind of religious identity or connections to these people's religion, their connections, any connection to their religion? Because religion helps to reclaim cultural identity, preserve cultural identity. It protects any kind of claim or future challenge. That's okay. Theology does that. So they gave them a brand new theology. So any religion that they brought, they were supposed to quickly lose that. Because if they held on to their religion, it continues to connect them to their past and to their present and to the peoples. And the plan was to remove any kind of identity that they may have as a people, any culture that they have. So part of the plan was to remove part of colonization was to remove a people's cultural identity, and part of that involves taking away their religion, or redefining them as not having a religion, or maybe if they did, it was one that was based on a kind of devilish, cannibalistic kind of worship and tradition. And even up to today, that's the idea and the attitude that many Caribbean people have towards Afro-Caribbean beliefs. And the Caribbean theology is important to this end, because it helps to revisit the history of the Caribbean people and tell the true story, not a gospel devoid of the true experiences of these people, okay, but one that revisits these people and one that tells their true story, their true religion, their true experiences, and connects them to their past and dignifies them. By integrating elements of African and Caribbean spirituality, by integrating elements of African and Caribbean spirituality, we can now reconnect with our indigenous beliefs and practices that were marginalized during the colonial era. So this the process, Caribbean theology, and the study that we want to embark on fosters a sense of pride and self-determination among Caribbean communities and challenges the dominance of Eurocentrism in theological discourse. Again, and by the way, and I'm going to say something, I believe that the Jamaican government is reading my work. I know that they are. I know they are following my stuff. And I'm going to say why. It's good though, because they know that we are doing this study. They are aware. People in the Caribbean know that we are conducting this study at JTS, that I'm doing this study, looking at the changing attitudes towards Afro-Caribbean beliefs. Because they just passed a bill recently. A bill was just passed about the legalization of obeah, because obeah, the practice of obeah is illegal in Jamaica. The practice of obeah is illegal, and when there was a move or a bill to make obeah legal, many Jamaicans, especially led by the church, were opposed to that. So yes, this study that I'm embarking on is very important, looking at changing attitudes towards Afro-Caribbean beliefs. And when I say to you that historically we've had a negative attitude towards Afro-Caribbean beliefs, I am not wrong, I am right. So yeah, go ahead.
Sir, so are you saying, am I to interpret then that you are okay with obeah as it is? You know, we know we have a negative connotation of obeah. Is it that you're okay with it being legalized? And let me put it into context. So you're okay with?
Are you okay? Well, no, of course you know my answer to that question. Okay, I believe in diversity, equity, and inclusion. The same black people who are asking for diversity, equity, and inclusion are going to create a bill or continue a policy that discriminates against a particular tradition that is Afro-Caribbean. Absolutely.
Right, let me put it another way then.
So wait, no, just because I am Christian and I believe in Jesus doesn't necessarily mean that I must put down some other person's belief and faith because they believe in something. And not only that, I am going. Let us. By the way,
can you give us your definition of obeah, sir? What is
we
your
actually
definition?
did a little lecture looking at obeah, and I'm going to talk. And that, by the way, I'm so happy I'm doing this class today, and I'm so happy I'm doing the research. You see how this is? Oh my God, this is great. Let us get obeah. I have a lecture prepared to you to talk to you about obeah, what obeah is, what voodoo is, what.
Yes, sir. Yes, please define it for us.
And not only that, there are people who are corrupting the practice of obeah because obeah was seen as protection against evil. That was basically protection and for healing purposes. Okay, it has nothing to do with attacking people. It was used in it became known as that by the same European people who wrote our texts, who have handed it down to us, and we continue those texts today. Okay, the French didn't like voodoo, and they didn't like obeah because obeah and voodoo were used by the rebellions, the nanny of the Maroons, and all of these rebels to fight against European occupation and domination. They would always pray to their ancestors. They would look to their ancestors. They'll pray to them. They'll speak. They'll seek the help of spirit to give them the wisdom and the courage and to bring people together and talk about how they can fight against. They did not rely on the. Wait, no, there was not a reliance on the white man's God. There was a reliance on that was known to them. You relying on their ancestors, calling on their ancestors, dancing to their ancestors, giving them strength and power to tear down those who were fighting against them. Now, the Europeans were against that. Okay. And so what they did was to create text and book, just as how they created text and book about Haiti and how Haiti colonized DR when that was not the case. Okay? When they actually helped. Okay, go ahead, Felmin.
You're very passionate about it. And if I continue, I'm going to miss my point. I'm going to miss my point. And you don't have it locked already. But, sir, if all of what you are saying, if that's how obeah based on your description just now, if that's how it was presented to us, I'm sure a lot of persons would not have a pushback against it. But growing up,
Yes.
and if others on here tell me if they have heard another version as you put it just now. Growing up, we know Obia was introduced to us as something being evil, and it means me
But
see
who?
Alan as
Let
shine.
me ask the
Me,
question.
let me
Who?
finish the point, sir.
Who? No,
Me
but you
see
have to
Alan.
answer.
No, sir.
Who?
Everybody,
Who introduced it?
Sir, I wasn't and a white man, they teach me that. I was introduced this by our
But
own
who write
people.
our books? Who wrote our
No,
books?
well,
Where
I've
are we
never read
getting
this,
this from?
sir. I'm really ignorant. I've never sat down and read a book about Obia because I'm not interested. Because how it was presented to me, introduced to me in terms of our culture, me see Alan and Alan a shine. Me no like Alan and me feel say Alan not figure reach ahead of me. So me go mother, go pray for mother bring down Alan. God forbid Alan, I won't do that. God bless you and cover you in Jesus' name. But then we use it to stifle. It is presented in such a way we use it to tear down one another rather than, as you put it, to protect, to seek for strength, to seek for guidance. It is used in our culture as a negative way. I've never heard of Obia being used in a positive way, with the exception of Nani. It has never come to me in that way. So it has always been presented to me in a negative way to tear down one another. You not from ready, so or want to get ahead of somebody, so me go put a spell upon you for want of a better word, so we can reach. So that's not something to embrace.
That is from negative. That is from negative understanding about wrong understand, misnomer about it. Let me make a point. I'm going to make a point about abuse. What is it to abuse something? To abuse something.
To use it for your own benefit, whether it's a positive or a negative way, it doesn't matter as long as it's benefiting you.
But not only that, to abuse something is to violate a thing's purpose. To abuse something is to use a thing for something that it was not intended or created for. It's to go against it. A knife was not created to kill or to cut people, but people use it. Is the knife bad?
No, it's the heart of the man that is corrupt.
But but yet we are creating laws, but we're going to create a law that's saying, okay, we won't have no knife anymore. We're going to outlaw knives.
Or put restrictions on it and a certain class of persons who can use it.
Okay, right. But what we need, that means we are it's behavior. I said to you, behavior. Same thing with artificial intelligence. The same thing with the Bible. Are we going to make the Bible illegal because people use their Christianity? Are we going to make Islam illegal because people use their certain corrupt Islam traditions and then use it to justify why they can use it to bomb up planes and do a 9/11 and terroristic? Are we going to do that? The point I'm making is it is human beings that corrupt the purity of things. Okay, we read, and I said to you, when people want to control, they redefine a thing. Nothing black, no good. We already have that in our heads. Nothing black, no good. The Rastas, not good. The voodoo, not good. In fact, we have redefined the thing. So, okay, I'm going to do by the way, before you continue, I will do a lecture on Obia in a couple of minutes, if we have time. I was going to have you do you guys do the questionnaire, but I have a discussion that I have prepared, that if you follow my work, then you'll see some of my lectures on Obia and Afro-Caribbean beliefs. Because I say to you that many people have negative. In some other cultures, people believe the same thing about Christianity, and there are people today who are praying to Jesus to fight down other people. Now,
fine. Answer me this question, sir.
Aren't there people also praying to God, asking God to bring destruction on other people who they believe are
Which God? Which God? Which God? I mean, the Almighty God?
People even say in the name of Jesus. I'm telling you that. I was a boy and we know it. In Jamaica, people would pray, okay, you do that to me, I'm going to pray what? I'm going to shoot God for you. Look, God, you know.
I'm going to pray a bad prayer.
I'm talking and I'm
like, I'm pray a bad prayer for you.
Violent. It's the same thing that. Some of you had some questions and I'm going to get to it in a second, but I want you to. The point I'm making right here is that African traditions, African spirituality isn't supposed to have the power to do some things. Only the white European religions should have that power. It's about power. We can, there is much has been said. People use the Bible to justify slavery. Yes? But the Bible is still good. People talk about people using the practice of obia, yes, to make curses on their enemies. That people can corrupt the purity of a thing. That doesn't mean that you're going to legislate it, but no. And we know that. We know that. People corrupt the purity of the scriptures or what it is intended to be. People corrupt the purity of African spirituality for their own purposes. But the person with the greatest power wins. The colonizers have the power. Their idea was to colonize, Christianize, and civilize. Obia is a system of healing, justice making, and communicating with ancestral spirits. We've said that already. I do not need to define obia. The fact of the matter is, our minds have been attuned to a particular way of thinking. We have already said what obia is, but there are people who change the purity of things. Of course, there are people who even practice obia, who abuse obia. There are people who practice Islam, who abuse Islam. There are people who practice Christianity, who abuse Christianity. Yet, Christianity is not outlawed. It is the issue of power. And the fact that we are colonized to think that certain people like Trump gets to do bad things and get away with it, but Obama can't roll up his sleeve in the White House. Okay, what's the point that you guys want to make?
Sir, I was what Fleming was saying, and I'm thinking about it, sir. The examples of voodoo, revivalism, and obia, these practices that we see. Haiti, the number one religion in Haiti is voodoo. It is widely practiced. Yet there is such poverty.
No,
and
no, that's not true.
Sir, let me finish, sir. I know a lot of it stems from colonialism.
No, I'm correcting you. If you are speaking, if you're making a point and you make a historical error, I will.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Voodoo is not, and Idris can back me up, is not the number one religion in Haiti. Okay.
Not anymore. Okay.
Roman Catholic and voodoo. Okay. Yes. Roman is.
Let me just correct this. Christianity is 42% people in Haiti. From small and going up, I know that the Christianity is 42%. So obia is about 15 to 18% of people in the community who use obia.
But you will agree that it's widely practiced, though, Idris.
No, it is not. One of the things that people need to know about obia is that obia is in Haiti is more a countryside system or a countryside religion.
As in Jamaica.
Yes, it's not practiced in the cities and them. It is more countryside. So when it comes to the cities now, that's why you see anybody that do something bad to someone, they say, I'm going on the mountain for you. So when they tell you that, is that they go into a obia priest or something.
Here,
but with the coming of Jean-Bertrand Aristide, would legalize we legalize voodoo in Haiti. So you start to get some people into the city right now. They have the church as the Pentecostal church, as the Christian church, and they have their own church in the city. But
Yeah.
it still remains something that from the countryside.
And it's practice. Some churches, remember, and I say that voodoo is an obe is a practice, not a religion. It's a practice. Now, there's some institutions or religions, say for example, Jamaican revivalism, Pocomane, and so on. They practice voodoo. So part of they incorporate the practice of it, but and they also incorporate Christian practices within their religion. So remember, it's a practice. Now, there are those who might misuse the practice and use it for good, but we always know that the fighters, the abolitionists, would use it to pray to the ancestors to give them power. By the way, Obeah was first outlawed in Jamaica in 1760. In 1760, in the wake of Chief Taki of the Maroon, his rebellion in 1760, leaders sought advice from Obeah men who gave courage, solidarity, and spiritual protection. So that was the problem. The problem that the Europeans had is that Obeah was just a powerful religion because in some reason it was always giving these people hope, faith, solidarity, courage, bringing them together. Yes? And so in 1760, right after 1760, it was outlawed, and then again it was outlawed again later in the 1800s. So and that's what we know what it is. But go ahead, Julian.
Well, sir, I'm saying because of what I see with it and how I see it affects countries and people when it is widely practiced, sir, I have a fear. There's a fear of the practice for me, but I'm very informed in this class about the positives. I didn't even know there were positives of this practice. It's the first I'm seeing positives. Well, they were there, but I just didn't see it in that light with Nani and these people who used it to overthrow white supremacy. That's the only positive I know to date of the practice. So that is why I question it. I question it, sir.
But it's okay to question it because of where we're coming from. I had always questioned it, but even living here in the U.S., I'm exposed to voodoo. The chairman of the Department of Africology practices voodoo. She's a practitioner. She practiced voodoo. I go into her office and I smell herbs and spices. But as I grew up in European Christianity, Renaldo McKenzie, I grew up in European Christianity. My exposure to some African practices is minute until lately. Over the past 2-3 years, I've been doing lots of research. Because I even disdain Rastafarianism. I look down on Rastas. I never liked Rastas. My parents taught me not to look down on, they didn't want to serve the children around the Rastas. No, if you twist your hair, that's a problem. Okay. If you have the little curtain outside your house and stuff, that's a problem for me and for my family. Okay. We grew up looking down on African values, African spirituality, African traditions, and we embrace European and English traditions. And many of our aunts and uncles live in England and so on and so forth. And so, but now I'm being exposed to that. It's quite interesting to see how this is coming to fruition. But it's very important to know the truth and to understand some of these things. By the way, let me say I want to say this, that there's an article in the Jamaica Gleaner dated November 27, 2020, entitled Letter of the Day, Obeah is not evil, it is spiritual healing. I also referenced it in an article. In 1898, Obeah Act makes it illegal to be a person practicing Obeah. Practicing Obeah is defined as any person who, to effect any fraudulent or unlawful purpose or for gain for the purpose of frightening any person, uses or pretends to use any occult means or pretends to possess any supernatural power or knowledge. Okay, outside. Okay, and now notice it's already defined Obeah as occult. Okay, It already defines it as a cult. And it defines it as any fault. And there are those people who think Pocomania is frightening. People think if you go to certain churches, mainline churches, and you start to clap and say hallelujah and bop 2 times, they think that's frightening. I'm telling you, if you clap your hand too hard in some churches, that's frightening. How is it that we don't make that illegal? Anyways, that's interesting. Let's continue with the is happening. However, our attitude towards Afro-Caribbean beliefs has led us to think that no, okay, certain religions can do it, but others can't. If you Obias, they can't do that, or they don't. It's safe if okay, let's study communism and capitalism or Marxism. In the US, communism is bad, okay, but capitalism is good. But in China or Russia, communism is good, capitalism is bad. Okay, all right. You go to Islam, Christianity is bad, Islam is good. You come here, you come to Jamaica or Islam is bad, Christianity is good. It's the kind of ethnocentrism, it's the kind of Occidentalism or the kind of Orientalism that Ian Baruma and Edward Said talks about that continues in society today, and people don't even know it. Okay,
but sir, even when you watch
have been so brainwashed that I'm so happy.
When you watch the karate shows and you see the men flying on brooms, they're not classified as witches. It's just in the black culture they're classified as witches. I don't know.
Women are witches. Men are not. Men are wizards. Introduce that word because I was going to use use that word because I was going to talk about that today. The project, we have been so brainwashed to believe that Obia is bad, and the only say, for example, you define the thing, what did I say to you? How you control, you redefine the thing, you strip away the purity of the thing itself and formulate an own understanding. Same thing with slaves, saying that there is the talk about slave, create the idea of slaves, and then put slaves at the bottom of society. It's you look. I'm so happy you are. I like this. I like where we're going with this. This is great. I'm happy that you are coming at me like that. That's good. I love it.
But sir,
it's good. I love it. This is great because it helps me to understand. It validates in my mind how important a study that we are doing in this class, a study like this one. We have a responsibility. That's why we practice Caribbean theology, because it is our responsibility we say we are critical thinkers. It's thinking about thinking and thinking about what was. You see why in the first class I spent so much time talking about critical thinking? We do critical thinking, but we don't even realize that we're not thinking critically when we continue to go with the kind of thinking that Obia is evil. Because Obia is not evil. It is people that make the thing evil. Okay? Obia is a purist kind of religion that came about as a result of the people praying to their ancestors, integrating Muslim religions and other religions, and using it and relying on the spirit to pray against the European, to pray against the masters. The masters didn't like that, and they have created text that continues today. I knew Obia was bad because of what my mom told me. They knew because of who told her that? A European master who controlled.
All right, sir. All right, let me be more specific there. All right, so I take your argument. Even the good thing can be used in a corrupt or bad way, and at least I want to say something. I think that, and I'm not here saying that we should not embrace our Africanness or blackness or culture. That's not what I'm saying. But and you say critical thinking or being rational. We have to, even though that may be so, but we have to reach a place where we can look into the matter and say, boy, there are certain aspects.
Yes, Nikisha, I see your hand. Nikisha. Probably your hand.
Yes, sir, I'm here.
Go ahead.
Okay, so to the discussion that you're having about the different religions and Obia, and that they're praying to their ancestors and expecting them to come through for them. A scripture came to mind, and that was when Isaac is sorry, I don't remember the prophet, but he was Elijah when he and Jezebel's persons they set up the altar and they were praying to their persons, cutting themselves, doing all of that, but nothing happened. And when he prayed to God, fire came down and consumed the sacrifice. However, that's what they were. That's their culture, African. But however, as it relates to Jamaica and legalizing Obia, we have a different concept of it, and it's not that it's not like Maroon Town when they're having their thing. It's that people using it to be evil against people. So I guess the pushback against the legalization is the use of it. Yes, it's their culture, it's their practice, but it's the use that our culture, use it. We don't use it as a spiritual being to get in contact with the ancestors, because once persons are dead, they're dead. However, we use it to kill people
Hold on, okay,
and
fine.
do other stuff, sir.
Keisha, stop. Hold on a second. Now, we have to be careful about making generalizations in order to prove our point. You are making a generalization. You are making the assumption that everybody that practice obia practice it for bad. No, that is not true. You are only utilize. There are instances where people say, "Oh, Melo obia you." That's okay. Yeah, there are people that say that, and okay, and there are people who say that they are praying using Christianity and the Bible to do just as that. They rebuke you in Jesus' name or they curse you. Okay, there are people who use bad things, but it was never the case. The point, and I said to you just now, it is an issue of power. The white man gets to curse and walk free, but the black man does not. The same thing. All right? Christianity is a European practice, religion. Okay? Which had been used, which all people use it for bad. People now use an African practice like obia for bad as well. However, what is the treatment? How do we treat nothing thick, nothing black, no good? What is the historical treatment towards those African traditions as against European traditions? Okay? Even within our own selves, the malady, the abnormality that persists is where we can look inward and still give credence and acknowledge the power and dominance of European religiosity and values over our own.
Sir, I wouldn't say, all right, from my, as I'm saying, is my personal view. All right. So in what I have known about Obi and how the perception that I have gotten is persons will use it to say, all right, if you don't like a person, they're going to use that to kill you or to hurt you or to harm you. So I am saying the reason why the Christian society in Jamaica had pushed back on the legalization is the concept of what it is used for. Yes, what I'm learning now that yes, it's their culture, but at the same time, I think that's the basis on which the pushback it was pushed back because persons were scared to say, all right, if this person saying they're gonna obey me, you're gonna be afraid. And sometimes the mind is powerful. And even if the person don't do anything, you're going to be sick.
But I mean, you're still saying the same thing, Nikisha.
So I guess the pushback is a concept of it.
Yes, but what I'm saying, but listen, you're saying the same, but we both are on the same page. Yes, there we go. But it wasn't until 1898. Okay, 1898 it was made illegal. Okay, in 1798 again. Okay, we know there is a lot of abolitionist and heroic efforts by um the Jamaicans, the black and brown people who live on the colonies. Yes, we already know that, and it was made illegal by by the colonizers. Okay, not by the Africans themselves. We had nothing to do with it. Okay, or the Caribbean. Okay, it was completely out of our hands. Yet, what has happened is that we have persisted after we have gotten independence these countries, they still, well, Jamaica is the only country, but all the other Caribbean countries have abandoned that law. Okay, but Jamaica have kept it.
Okay, sir. One more thing before I go. I have another.
I'm going to ask, should theology transcend culture? I'm probably going to ask you a question about that. But some of these things is on JTS online. This lecture that I'm playing, you can watch the rest of it online. So I don't think I need to play this anymore. You can watch the rest of it online. In fact, let me stop share my screen.
No, so all right. So what I am asking, because for majority of the courses that I got, what the
Yeah.
lecturers do, they will give us like the topics. They don't tell us exactly, but they will give us the topics in a Word document and say use this as a study guide. So I'm wondering if Chantelli will either drop it in the group so we have a
No,
guide.
there is no study guide. This is the study guide. The study guide is to review all the lectures that's posted up in your lectures, because all the questions come from your video. The video, I watch the video and ask the
But
question.
sir, you know
Let
that
me
these
tell you.
videos are
Oh,
over 1 2
yes,
hours.
but I want you to watch the
But sir,
video.
no, I'm gonna reach an exam because they need to narrow it down a
No.
little bit so
Okay,
we
let me
can
ask
zoom
you. Okay,
in.
let me ask you a question. How do you define culture?
Sir, I don't know nothing right now. And that
No,
is that
no. How do you define culture? How do you define culture?
I define it
one
as
of
a
my
rite of
other
passage.
classmates. Go ahead,
Something
please.
that a rite of passage. For me, if a more like a rite of passage, something that cannot be taught, something that is innate from that is passed down to
It's
different generations.
it's the way
Okay.
of life, the way of life of a people, the culture.
Great. That's it. You can stop right there. That's it. That's okay. Way of life of a people. Okay. That's those buzzwords. There are some key buzzwords that's very important. Way of life of a people. That's it. Okay. What is global south? The global south. I said it here. Let me see if you guys were listening. What's global south? Anybody?
You see, and nobody not opening their mic and talking
The
up, so we
global
need more
south. The global
stuff.
south as against the global north. The global south as against the global north. I said it 3 times in this lecture and in the recording. And it's in your book, the textbook, Neoliberalism, Globalization, Income Inequality, Poverty, and Resistance, in the preface. Okay. I talk about the global south. The first paragraph. Okay. The global south are formerly, they are developing countries. Okay. Formerly called third world countries. That's global south. We say, okay, remember I said we speak in a very politically correct way. We don't say third world anymore. We say global south. Yes? In fact, many of the global south countries or developing countries are now considered emerging countries, particularly Jamaica, Mexico, Argentina. They are emerging markets, emerging economies. Okay? If I what if I ask you what key institution was developed in 1944 that has helped to derail Caribbean economics?
The IMF, sir.
Oh my God, who said that?
Nikisha.
Nikisha. How you know that?
Sir, I remember the lecture that you had presented it and I was watching something
And
about
you
it.
you watched it. See, that's what I'm telling you. You watch the lectures. You can all these questions I'm asking you are questions that are now also if you go on JTS online, I mean the Moodle, and go into the class lecture. The class lecture have some questions, have some of these very same questions. I dub it like lesson plans, lesson 9 to 11. I have questions. Say for example, in fact, let me go on let's go to JTS
Sir, like
Moodle.
the midterm,
Yes.
like the midterm questions that were there, because I think what my classmates are saying, correct me if I'm wrong, colleagues, is this course is very compact, and a lot of these information is us relearning what we were taught. So
Yes.
it's very compact. So we wanted like an outline to see, all right, you don't have to give us a specific topic, but just an outline to say these are the areas, so we can read accordingly, because
Yeah.
your
You
lectures
know,
are
if you,
interesting,
but
but they are very lengthy.
they are lengthy, yes, and because the
Yeah,
class,
three hours and more, sir.
it's a 3 hour class, and we actually skipped, probably we didn't have one or two class, so
Yeah, sometimes we stay over 3 hours. Sometimes we're on until 7 or more. So
yes,
I guess that's what my
yes,
colleagues are saying.
to make up for those, for 6 hours of class that we miss. Okay, but all right, but fine. But listen, look at this, guys. If you go to JTS Online, if you look at the opening lecture, um, is there a paradigm for the study of Caribbean thought or Caribbean studies? I asked a question. Is there? Is there? What is Afrocentric paradigm? You know that's gonna come up. It's right there. Okay? It's paradigm. Okay. You know, you have to know that. What is the Caribbean? Um, uh, rethinking the Caribbean. Boring. What is Afrocentrism? What is Afrocentrism? Go if you follow. I'm gonna go through. I'm gonna ask questions from this. The first couple of questions it's gonna ask about this, because I spent at length talking about Afrocentric paradigm. All the topics that we dealt with in the class. Afrocentric paradigm. You'll get a class on that. You will get a class. You'll ask the question. I will. You're gonna at the end of the last part of the essay of the exam. The last part of the exam, you're going to be asked to write an essay, a short essay. So the exam is going to be split up in about 3 sections, 3 or 4 sections. There's going to be true and false short answers, distinguish between global south and global north, distinguish between post-colonialism and colonialism, okay, distinguish between Marxism and uh, capitalism, um, uh, so on and so forth. What is critical thinking? How is it important? Anyways, that's the beginning. But and in the middle, I might ask you about figures. Match these people to their countries. Marcus Garvey, Frantz Fanon, okay, CLR James. Match these people to their countries. I asked you to do some matching and stuff, and then towards the end, you'll be asked to do an essay, a short answer. If it's sometime the head of department come at me because I make it too easy. So if I have to have 4 sections instead of 3, then it's going to be short answers, asking you to define certain terms, and then the 4th section is going to be I might ask you to do an essay. Might do an essay. The short answer could, these are very important. What is socioeconomic context of the Caribbean? Where is the Caribbean and the Caribbean people? What is critical thinking? Do we have urban heritage in the Caribbean? Um, those questions are, you're going to see some of those questions. I'm not going to tell you the exact thing because that would be too much. But these things, what is the Caribbean? Who determines this? Now, the chronological order of the Caribbean. When did Christopher Columbus came to the Caribbean? By the way, a gentleman was said, who said that there's a book that, do you know of anyone who said that Christopher Columbus, sailors came, African presence before the Caribbean, before the Europeans? Ivan Van Sertima. By the way, if you know, look at this, if you go, and of course that is already here. I'm going to go through this and come up with the questions. So every time I'm going to go to week 1, look at what happened in week 1, look at the lecture and ask you questions. Sorry. What is Caribbean? Who determines this? And I'm not going to ask you that. But what is the Caribbean? The Caribbean is an invention of the 21st century. What will it be in the 20th century? What will it be in the future? But I will send around, as I said to you, I did promise I will send you something by this week, hopefully by this weekend. I'm still working on some of the questions. I wanted you guys to finish your presentations before I finish with the exam paper. But now that you guys have finished with Barbados and Jamaica, I'm gonna set the paper. I'm gonna ask you about the 7 basic I'm going to ask you about the 7 basic African cultural characteristics. Okay. What are the identify 5 or 3 or 2? I don't know. Please remember that we did that in class. What are the 7 characteristics of Mulana Karanga? The 7 basic African cultural characteristics. Which one determines the others? In your discussion, explain what each refers to. You can go through that. This is actually the answer to the question. Okay, I might ask you this exactly as is, and you give it to, and you have it there already. Okay. Anyways, but we talk about CLR James. We talked about him. It's in the class. We talked about Dottie Bookman. Who is the founder of the who is the founder of the Haitian Revolution according to the Haitians inside Haiti? Idris will get that, but do you guys know? I asked that question before.
According to Haiti, according to what is done in history.
Idris, help us.
Because you just give us another one the other day, and I don't know.
Idris, are you there?
Yes, I am here.
Okay, help
But
them.
my answer will be very different from any Caribbean people.
But based on what we have discussed in the class, we said that inside of Haiti, the founder of the revolution is who?
So you will say Dirty Bookman. You are going to pick up my daughter. Yeah.
Dirty Bookman. You said Dirty. Is it Dirty Bookman? Is it
Yes.
Is it Dirty Bookman inside Haiti?
So, when you say inside Haiti, what you mean by saying that? Because
between
Bookman was the one that
listen, who is the founder between Toussaint and Dessalines? Who is the founder in Haiti?
The founder is Dessalines.
There we go. Yes, we said that. We discussed that.
Yes.
I am going to ask that. I am going to ask that question exactly like that. And by the way, it is somewhere.
Okay. But so you can't make me right to saying because history never tell me nothing about that human. History tell us it's Toussaint.
Toussaint, yeah, but that is side of Haiti, the European history. Okay, but this is Caribbean thought.
Exactly.
Correct. Okay. So please don't give me a European answer.
For the European, Toussaint is the founder because Toussaint was the one that worked for them.
Correct.
But for us,
are we gonna put this out in the world that it's not Toussaint so we can rewrite history?
Yes, yes. I've been talking to people, I've been having conversations. That's what we do. That's why I want Idris to make it his work. Okay? To write about Dessalines. Because nobody knows about him outside of Haiti. Although I had several conversations with some people in the streets in Philadelphia. I said, hey, do you guys know who is the founder of Haiti? And some people say, you're gonna say it's Toussaint. I'm like, no. I know, I learned it's somebody with the spelling Dassailines.
Yes, Dessalines.
And they said they were frightened that I knew, and they said, how you know? I said, don't worry, I mean, I have my source.
Could you just repeat that name and spell it, sir?
Idris, help us, please.
Okay, is Jean-Jacques is J D
E.
No, I am giving the name. So let me just put it in the chat. Everybody will see.
Put it in chat.
Yeah.
All right. I'm gonna ask you about life and death. Okay. Or you can write based on your review of life and death. Who is responsible for Caribbean economic position? Or I might ask you, the film Life and Death is based on what book? Written by who? Yeah? Life and Death. It is based on a book written by who?
By a book written by you, sir.
But sorry, Life and Death is based on a book. What's the name of the book?
Neoliberal.
No. The film Life and Death is based on a book about Antigua, written by called A Small Place, written by Jamaica Kincaid. Okay.
Sir, there's an award ceremony going on by the
already.
Go ahead. There's an award ceremony going on for what?
A JTS that we have to join now, sir.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, is it on Zoom?
Yes, sir.
Can you send me can somebody email me the link or something?
Sure.
How come I didn't know about it? I haven't been Chantel, where is Chantel? She's not here. Why wasn't I reminded about the this award ceremony? Absolutely
Sir,
ridiculous.
I just sent it to you, sir. I just sent it to you.
Thanks. All right, we're gonna
So,
end
sir,
class.
isn't it Monday we're having your examination? No, it's not Monday. It's in at the ending of this month, correct?
Yeah, they usually give me
The
time because
25th.
they know
Okay.
I'm very busy. They always give my class extra time for the exam. You guys are usually the last student, the last exam to do because they give me time to do your exams, and I give God thanks for JTS for working with me. Thank you, JTS. And you guys have time to prepare, so that's great because it will give me time to put a nice, beautiful list to send to you, each of you students, to get yourself prepared for the exam. If you guys want help with that, I will do that for you. Okay? Because as I said,
Okay, sir. Thank you.
you want to focus on the exam. You want to focus on the exam. Okay? If you guys haven't done any work for me, yes, please give me the work because I'm not. You cannot fine. You might get 100% or 90% in the exam, and if you pass my exam, I'm gonna let you pass the course. Okay. However, if you did not do any work in the semester, you're gonna have to have a conversation with me. Okay. But
Sir, there's one book I can't find. The second book review. I can't find not the second one. The Mama Jama one I did year book and then the second book.
Ivan.
That's not yeah.
Oh, they came. Is it? They came before. I have to find out. What book that I know. Oh no, it's just one book. Neoliberalism, the preface and the introduction chapter, and I'm a Mazama. Was there anything else?
There was it was three reflections. The Amamazama,
Afrocentric paradigm.
Afrocentric paradigm, and
the next one, the third book, which that's not listed on the resources. I mean, the book name is there, but I can't find the book. Your book,
Is
sir.
that book that you write? Is it that you wrote, sir? Is that book from you?
Oh, I have to check. Okay.
Neoliberalism.
Neoliberal.
Guys, type in the entire thing in YouTube, sir. Have a whole thing on it. So type in the entire thing, the life and death of a country. So type it into YouTube and you see it.
Oh yeah, life and death. Yes. And if you have any problems, speak to me off when we're finished, and I'll get it and I'll talk with you. I want to go to the award.
Sir, quickly before you.
Yes, go ahead.
When do we get feedback for our presentation? Because we didn't get.
Oh, Drew, I'm so sorry. Very good. All the presentations were good, and you guys did a very good job. Thank you for presenting. Hopefully you have a reference page. Hopefully if you once you present, you send it to me because I'm going to sit down and go over each of them. And I usually at the end, just before the exam, I mark all the papers, and you're just going to be getting a lot of things from me. I usually do that. So before you sit your exam, you're going to be getting a lot of remarks. If you send me papers and stuff, you're going to start getting remarks from me, getting grades and so on and so forth. Okay. So you're going to be getting a lot of that from me. And if there are any questions, I'm going to send you email about comments. You can respond. I might say, hey, what do you mean by this? Okay. So you're going to be getting that. So between now and up to the exam, you'll be getting a lot. I've been marking all the papers. And I've been making comments. So look out for my emails and comments that I send you over the next couple of days. Okay.
Okay, sir.
If you have any
just a quick suggestion as well, my fellow classmates. So what I did, I just compile all my work and send them in one email. The 3 things and the PowerPoint, just send it in one email because sir keeps saying he's busy. So I think it's best to just compile everything and shoot it to him in one email. So maybe when he's marking, you can find all the work rather than going through far back from January
Oh
to
my
start marking.
God. Oh my God. Yes, please. If you please help me with that. Yes, yes, that would be great. Thank you. And is this the last class? I hope I keep in touch. I hope we keep the Caribbean Thought WhatsApp group going. You know, you guys can talk about different things. If you have ideas for shows, if you guys have stories you want to share, and if you want me to bring light to any issues in Jamaica or whatever, yes, you guys know you guys have a platform to do so. Reach out to me, okay? And keep in touch. All right, guys.
Okay, sir.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you.
Yes,
It was
Okay,
lovely
sir,
having
will
you as
do.
our lecturer. Thank you for being our wonderful lecturer. We have learned a lot. I think our minds have been blown by the things that we have learned and expanded. So thank you for having us this semester.
Thank you, and thank you guys. It was really good. May God bless you
And
and keep.
I'd like to add to that, sir, to say thank you. My mind has been open to a lot of things. I always loved history, but it was so far behind. But I'm really interested to pursue Caribbean thought and some more of our history. You
Yes.
know, thank you very much for everything, and we look forward to getting good grades, sir, for the little work, because this is such a big topic. I feel like we're just starting to enjoy the class, just scratching the surface, and it's
Yes,
over. But for the
I
little work
know.
that we were able to do, please mark us nicely, sir.
Yeah, well, that's fine. Okay, well, you guys did really well. But please, by the way, cosmopolitan. Remember, cosmopolitanism or sorry, diaspora. Diaspora has nothing to do with countries joined together. It's people outside. The African diaspora, African people that live outside of Africa. The Caribbean diaspora, Caribbean people that live outside of the Caribbean. Okay, remember that. Jamaican diaspora, Jamaican diaspora community here in the U.S. are Jamaican people from the Jamaica who live outside of Jamaica and form a community here in the U.S. That's diaspora. So if I ask you to define diaspora or Caribbean diaspora, okay, is the diaspora is people, Caribbean people from the Caribbean who live outside of the Caribbean. That is diaspora. Okay, guys?
Sir, we could have mixed that up after you tell we say Jamaica thrive off our remittance. So we must I remember when you clearly state that it's remittance that we
Yes.
can't mess up with the US, so we definitely remember that.
Yes, that is true. And they'll do things. They'll do things. Yeah, man. Yeah, man. Okay. Well, take care, guys. Bless up and walk good and
Sir,
follow. Yes.
sir, have to go as well, sir. Thank you as well, sir, for a great semester, sir. Coming into Caribbean Thought, I was like, I wonder what I'm going to learn in this class. For the first couple of weeks, again, I was like, what I'm going to learn in this class. But then the more you speak, sir, the more you talk about things, the more research you do, especially with the Caribbean islands and the
Yes.
presentations, the more I'm like, and the discussions that we have in class and the passionate discussions, I'm like, I really get to enjoy this class and enjoy you as a lecturer, sir. You're a very good lecturer and you really do know your stuff, sir, and I've learned a lot from you. So I really appreciate having this class this semester, and I was glad I was able to come around and you really get to enjoy this class and what it has to offer.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. I have grown over the years, and the group presentations is really the students in the class one of the class I had, because as I said to you, I'm very flexible. I'm learning. I'm not a straight jacket person in the sense that things aren't written in stone. I usually say the syllabus is really flexible because I want the learning should be a relationship, not an empty jug. So I want to learn the students a couple of weeks. So one day I remember I asked students, do you want a final exam or do you want a midterm and blah 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 blah? And say, hey, let's do an exam. Let's do this, let's do that. I like that. They were very aggressive. And since they loved it, and since I started that, this is the second time I'm doing this, having the students present. It's really, and I'm happy that I do that because we get to cover even a lot more that I would not have been able to cover if I didn't give you guys that assignment. So that's really good. Yeah. And probably something you can incorporate if you guys ever become teachers or for our teachers. One thing you can incorporate, you know, being flexible with your syllabus and sometimes having the students come up with some of the ideas which can be revolutionary to a particular program or class. All right. Well, take care, guys, and may God bless you and walk good. And I'm going to release the lecture from last week tonight, and then this one today next week. Take care.
Okay, thank you, sir.